I'm trying to rein myself back from just saying like, take the plunge and move everything into a Roth and let me, build up your savings account for you. I'm only doing it in the best interest of you.
You're listening to Alternative Investor Mastermind, where we do a deep dive on alternative investment opportunities and the lifestyle it can create. Join Jack Krupe as he presents actionable tips and tricks in doing passive real estate away from mainstream strategies. Go beyond the usual fix and flips and try less explored yet rewarding investing ventures, from multifamily properties, mobile homes to cryptocurrencies. Do not miss this opportunity to escape traditional assets and finally create wealth without Wall Street. Now your host, Jack.
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Alternative Investor Mastermind. Really excited for our guest today. You've seen her all over the internet because her social media game is spectacular. Jada Thoele, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me on.
So tell us your story. You're actually I don't even know your exact age, but you're relatively young and you've been able to jump right into real estate head first here. So tell us how you got started.
Yeah, so I am 24, just so you know. Quick thing, I was born in 2000, so my godmother asked me every year, how old are you turning? I'm like, well, one, you're my godmother, you should know. Two, just think of the year. So yes, 24. But I was actually back in 2021, I was going to college back in Cal State LA, so Los Angeles. I was going to school for mechanical engineering, not necessarily for a specific reason other than I liked physics. And because of the whole lockdown situation, we had to learn a lot online. And then once we finally went back into person, I felt like I didn't know an adequate amount of, what I should have known if I were to continue on into that engineering field. And so I just wasn't very confident, and I wasn't interested enough in the field in general to put in the work to actually teach myself the content, because I could have got it. It's not that hard. So I was not quite understanding what I wanted to do. And at the time, I'm pretty sure I saw some Instagram video of some 18-year-old girl or 20-year-old girl that said, hey, I have a rental property and I get free money from it. So I said, oh my gosh, that sounds great. So I started looking online on YouTube, different real estate attorneys, how to start an LLC, what is an LLC, S Corp, C Corp. And somewhere along the lines, I ended up kind of coming to terms with, okay, well, I know I need an LLC, but what's the cheapest way I can get into a property? And so with that, I started thinking of, okay, I can probably go in with auctions and go and buy a house at auction. But the only thing keeping me from that was guilt from, I just started making this whole story up in my mind about a whole family that just were down on their luck. They unfortunately missed on a couple payments and it was just this whole thing. And so I didn't know what I wanted to do yet. So I just kept listening to a bunch of different YouTube videos. And then finally somebody had Pace Morby on. And for those who don't know Pace Morby, look him up. But he talks about buying property seller finance, or subject to, which is essentially going around the banks and trying to really accommodate more of the sellers and doing a lot of different things. So that means that the entry fees and the down payments are generally lower. So that was something that intrigued me a lot. But the thing that really hit the nail on the head and made me actually join his Subto Mentorship was the fact that he said, we help people get out of foreclosure. And so that was it. That's all I needed. And so I immediately signed up. I wasn't too confident in my ability to get deals as soon as possible to pay off the mentorship. So I worked at Olive Garden for a while to pay it off. And then once I did, and I was like, all right, I'm done. And then I started in my journey.
Nice. So how long have you been full-time in real estate?
I've been full-time for almost 3 years now. I think in September it'll be 3 years.
That's great. So I actually did some subject to back in the early 2000s when you were 2 or 3. And we would still, at the time, we had to buy the data from the county. We would get an Excel spreadsheet, and we made these little yellow postcards, and we sent out mailers in where I went to college in Rochester, New York. I'd imagine marketing has changed. I know there's a lot more tools and a lot more automations. Like how do you make the phone ring? How do you get your leads?
Yeah, so now we do more of the direct to agent outreach approach. We don't necessarily have virtual agents. To go into that, I run a wholesale operation with a couple other partners, and part of it is to wholesale, and so that's where we do direct to agent outreach. And why I like it is because agents always or should always have leads coming in, so it's just a great form of lead flow. But we look at the MLS, we look at Zillow and different on market properties essentially, and we look for the ones with low to no equity. So then that's where we start pitching in Subto.
Gotcha. And for those that I think most of our audience probably knows, but let's back up a bit and let's really describe what a Subto transaction is and how the mechanics of it work.
Yeah. So, I mean, since you've been doing it longer than I have, you can correct me on anything I say, but essentially the way that I like to say it is you're taking over a seller's mortgage payments. So when you're buying a property Subto, you're buying it subject to the mortgage that's remaining in place.
Yeah, and often that might be a 3% loan in some cases, right? Best case scenario, it was a loan from a few years ago with a really low interest rate.
Oh, yeah. One of the ones that we just sold was a 2.25 interest rate.
Great. And then you're targeting those that don't have equity, but over the last couple of years, there's been a pretty substantial amount of appreciation in many markets. Are there still, how many deals are actually underwater still or have minimal equity at this point?
A lot. It's surprising. A lot of people, and I think that's what happens with just so many aspects of real estate in general. A lot of people might think, there's only so many houses that you can buy, or there's only so many houses that are available. And when you actually look on the MLS, it's incredible to just get it's an eye opener. But we get at least 12 to 15 under contract a month. So I would say that's a pretty substantial amount.
Great. And you live in California, right?
Yes.
And where do you operate? What markets are you targeting?
So it's more of the Sun Belt area. So like North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, Georgia, Florida.
And why, I almost know the answer, but why do you choose those states?
Landlord friendly. So coming from California and having family that do have rental properties, foreclosure processes are not fun and not everything is very much more compliant for the tenants. Even squatter rights in California are insane. So as us, if we were to buy some properties, which sometimes we are thinking about possibly doing, we would want to make sure that we're working in states that we can possibly invest in the future. And so we start getting a better sense of, their laws and such. But then also a lot of our network base and a lot of our buyers are also in the same sense. They want to make sure that they're investing in landlord friendly and they don't have to worry if they get a tenant that isn't the best.
Yeah, and I've seen the worst of that in New York, and being in the mortgage side of the business. We had foreclosures that took 5 years, and every trick in the book to delay. And sometimes it wasn't even the borrowers. There were some bad actors doing subject to that would buy the deed off of the person in Brooklyn and then rent the place out for 5 years and just delay and just skim the rent for as long as possible. And eventually they just lose the house, and that was their game plan. So I'm assuming that you and your investors are better actors, because you really do want to help the borrower avoid foreclosure and make sure ideally their credit can improve faster if they're avoiding a foreclosure as well. Yeah,
absolutely. And that was the whole reason why I joined, because my family personally hasn't gone through a foreclosure, which has been great, but I've known families who have, and their credit is just wrecked.
Yeah, it's when done right, it's definitely a good thing. I've definitely seen some chatter on the internet about the due on sale clause, which I never really worried much about, because for years rates were lower, and the old rates were higher. But is there a certain structure that you set up, like a land trust or something, or a way to ensure that it's done compliantly?
Yeah, that's exactly what we've done. We've just deeded it back to the owner, I believe, and then put it in a land trust and gone about it that way. I know some other people also do lease options. So instead of a purchase agreement all up front, it's essentially just putting it as a rent to buy kind of contract.
So I want to go back to when you started and you had this thought in your head about sort of the, negative stigma about the auction and somebody losing their house. Now that you've been in a few years, has that bleeding heart hardened at all? Or have you seen enough bad actors at this point, or you still have a positive outlook?
I still have a positive outlook. I definitely have run into a lot of people who have taken advantage of things, which is just interesting. Like, you wouldn't, I don't know. People surprise you. So I'll put it that way. That's always interesting. But I have actually been more and more thinking about how I can use everything that I'm learning to help the youth, or to help everyday people, like, actually start getting into real estate more responsibly and actually understand subject to and all of these different things, so that people don't just blindly go into buying houses or blindly go into debt when it may not be necessary, or maybe it's not the right kind of debt. So it's actually been able to wake me up into more of a kind of like a servant mentality, which I appreciate.
Yeah, that's great. I've always been an evangelist for whatever I was doing. I was the one trying to get people to buy a 2-family house and house hack. I was loudly telling people to buy non-performing loans when, after 2008. Now, it's a little bit more about taxes and just managing and investing passively more efficiently now. So it's just great to be able to get the word out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in addition to subject to, you do some other stuff as well, right?
I do, yes. Yeah, one of the main things that I really focus on is lending. And if people were to look me up at all, you'll probably see a bunch of videos now about that. But like I said just a second ago, I really like being able to bring kind of everyday people into this space. And so I know a lot of people who are just getting into the wholesaling realm, or a lot of people who have kind of flipped but really want to get more into it but don't necessarily have the funding yet. And with that, I really relate to more with the latter, because that's kind of where my aunt's positions are. They've owned rental properties. They've done 1 or 2 flips, but they're just not there yet, especially with kids in college, to put all their eggs in one basket like that. And so that's where I come in, and I've been partnering with some really, really great lenders, especially in the Subto community. And they've been doing real estate and lending and multifamily and all different things for over 10 years. So it's really nice to be able to work with them and start working on providing funding and being creative to even, find our own gap funder. So if somebody really can't bring anything to the table with whatever their situation is, we may be able to bring the full funding. Or if people are just getting into the wholesale realm and maybe they have a great deal, but they don't want, the seller isn't quite on board if they're wholesaling it, or maybe their buyer is trying to get the best deal possible, even though it's working with their numbers. But if they see that the wholesaler were to make $40,000 on an assignment fee, maybe they're not too happy about that. So what a lot of people and wholesalers do in that situation is they do a double close, and they'll need to close on the property one way, so they'll need the funds. So that's where we've come in. We've provided the funds. And then, they just close again with their buyers and then pay us back.
And so that's a loan for, say, 24 or 48 hours, right? Just long enough to have the money at the title company?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. So I actually used to get away without having to do that in Rochester. These were cheaper houses. These were like $50,000, $60,000 houses in upstate New York, but it was an attorney state. So there were times I would show up at a closing at 11 a.m. to buy the property, and we'd have a buyer coming at 3 p.m. to my attorney's office. And my attorney's like, yeah, well, you could pick up a check at the end of the day. and so I'd go to both closings with no cash, and then I'd just pick up my check at the end of the day. But yeah, it was that exact scenario and these weren't big dollars. This might've been 10 or 15,000, but on a $50,000 house, it was 20%. And buyers, even if the numbers work, buyers, unfortunately, there's too many buyers have that mentality of they care how much you make, not how much they're making or how good of a deal they're still getting. They just can't get their mind over it.
Yeah, I almost did a flip with somebody like that last year, where it took us a year of negotiating, almost a year. But he had a nice house. I mean, we could have made it great, and he really wanted, his like I think it was 1.5, which he was not going to get. And then, and he just, like he didn't want to bring in the funds. He didn't want to do anything. There was a flood. So then things started getting moldy and started rotting. We're like, dude, the more that you're dragging this out, the more it's going to get worse. And he was just really upset every time we would come with a new idea of, okay, how about we do this? How about we rearrange the pay structures? And he just kept saying, like, you know, I've held on to this property, so I should have more of the appreciation. And you guys are only putting, what, 3 to 6 months worth of work in it. I don't think that constitutes you making, you know, 100,000 or X amount of dollars. And for us, it didn't make sense.
Yeah, that's a big number too. There's a lot of risk in the larger the property, the more the risk. The high end of the market often takes a downturn more than the middle class market. And then, so on your lending, so you do you have access to all the products, like everything from a kind of a 30-year investment property loan to fix and flip to the transactional funding.
So I work in more of the department where it's shorter loans, so flipping and transactional funding. Yeah, so 6 to maybe 12 months and shorter. I like
that's that's great. That's what keeps the investment market going.
Yeah. And what's great about that, and what I really appreciate as well, is I know that PACE came out with the whole Gator method. And so it teaches people how to transactional lend. And so now they know, oh, I can lend people EMD. I can fund double closings and whatever it may be. And at first, going into the field, I, very nervous. A lot of people are doing this now. The market's really saturated. I kind of have the scarcity mentality at first. But the more that I started thinking about things, the more PACE's collaboration over competitions kept seeping into my brain. And so I know that I work with some great lenders, and they're very bankable. They have millions of dollars that they're always trying to deploy. And so I started thinking, okay, well, let me just partner up with all of these, transactional funders. Let's, what they call it as Gator Wrestle. So I know that a lot of them have $5,000 to maybe $25,000 worth, or $25,000 that they can deploy. And that's difficult to find for a double closing. And they come, a lot of double closings are needing 10 times that amount. I've come across some that are $1 to $2 million worth that they need to utilize. And so now I'm trying to have a lot of people come to me and say, hey, we can help fund the rest of it. If you find something that's, like I said, like $250,000, you can still put in your 25 and you can get your return, and then we can come in so that you don't have to lose out on a deal. Like, there's no reason to try to go in all on your own if it's going to be far and few between.
Yeah, and using those numbers, like only 25,000, actually just reminded me of using the self-directed retirement accounts. I know a lot of people that are trying to build, and hopefully you have a solo 401 for yourself already. Because I look back and wish I had gotten mine going. I just, I always needed my cash, and I was always just trying to keep as liquid as possible. But now looking back, is like, if I would have rolled up that account from 20 years ago, it'd be, amazing. So do you actually have a solo 401k yet?
I don't have the solo yet. I was going to open that later this year. I do have a Roth.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, I just went to John Heyer's seminar. He did a 2-day class, and he blew my mind with various options. And the solo is far superior, both for being able to, lower your income, at least for the IRA portion of it, but then to do the mega Roth, where you can funnel a ton of money into the Roth, and a couple of years you can basically do any flip you want tax free. Obviously, long time till you can pull the money out, but the solo 401 is amazing. So, one of the greatest tips he gave was, if you start with the regular IRA portion, the solo 401 side of it, that's not the Roth, and you invest in something, you could then get a appraisal on it, lower the value through getting like a appraisal. Not a traditional real estate appraisal. It's more of just like a transfer pricing appraisal. And especially if it's a syndication or it's something that's not as liquid, they'll put a drastic discount on it. Then you convert it to a Roth, and you're only paying tax on the conversion at sometimes half the value.
Whoa, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was mind blowing. And that was only one of many tricks. So John's a great guy. I know he's got his own course. We'll give John a plug. You can also pay him in bourbon most of the time. He's a
Well,
bourbon
that's good to
collector.
know.
So I want to talk about social media because it's something, we obviously we do the podcast. I put stuff out there, but it's not been easy for me. And I think a lot of people, it's you just often don't kind of know what to say or put out there. Not everyone's as comfortable. I don't know if it's just natural for you or or how much you work at it, but talk about social media and give some tips for us old farts.
Yeah, absolutely. Tip number one that I love that I heard recently from there's another girl around my age that's even better at social media. Her name's Isa Fidelino. But she started telling me to fit my content around my lifestyle rather than my lifestyle around my content, which makes so much sense. I remember, I've been doing lives. I'm doing like a 30-day challenge where I do a live every day. And it's easy to do those. I kind of do them 5 minutes minimum, but I usually do them as I'm, winding down to sleep, or if I were putting on makeup or cooking. And it's great that a lot of people like them. I appreciate it. One time I was making pancakes and people still message me and ask when I'm going to make pancakes again, which is hilarious. But it's great because I was already doing those things. So I don't have to, try to plan out this whole thing where, okay, what am I going to say? Am I going to do a whole long podcast and then try to edit it? Do I have to pay an editor now? It's like, no, I just have to, with the lives, I just make sure that I know what I'm going to talk about. I like to prep beforehand. So I just, especially with the lending, I want to start teaching people what I'm learning. So I just kind of have one thing every day that I'm trying to teach. So that's kind of what I've been doing. If people, and again, that's live. So that's definitely different than having reels or podcasts or anything like that. But that's one thing that I highly suggest. Another thing is, if you can make the time, then make an hour or two where you, it's kind of like the lives, but you just batch record the content instead. So it's still talking to the camera. It's still strategizing like, okay, I want to talk about this for one video, this for one video. So you just talk about it. I think that's easy. I think a lot of people also really underestimate how much they know and how much they can share to the world. Because you start thinking, oh, well, I don't know if it's that, I don't want to say imposter syndrome because I feel like that's, just a word too used. But I think a lot of people start feeling like because they know something or because they've been doing it every day, all day, it's not difficult. And because it's easy to you, it should be easy to everybody else. And they don't realize that not everybody else cares about what you're doing, or they didn't care enough to really learn about it. So people don't know what wholesaling is. People don't know what a deed is or anything like that. So I have to remind myself constantly. And that's what I think a lot of people should do. Like remind themselves, hey, it's okay if I talk about this, a lot. I think people need reminders all the time and constantly. So what you can do is you can batch record content. We'll say 4 to 10 videos. I don't know. And 1 or 2 of those topics you can use again when you do your next batch recording because people will forget. And it's always good to bring up. And there's only so many amount of things that you can talk about. I have some friends who talk about credit and how to build your credit. And they've been doing this for, I think, 3 years now. And I asked them the other day, how are you still making videos? They're like, well, we remake it. We have the same topics, but you just say it differently.
Gotcha. That's great. I know I've struggled with sort of not realizing that some of the content could really help people because I know some of it pretty well. But then I surprised myself, and I've talked to so many, in my niche, I've talked to so many wealthy people who don't know all the tax loopholes. They're so busy running their own business. They don't know all the angles, and their CPA is a lot of CPAs are good at keeping score and telling you how much to pay, but not how to actually save. And once a CPA makes enough money, often they're just going to do it themselves. They're not going to, it's kind of a thankless business. You got to work 80 hours a week during tax season. And once they make enough money, it's not worth it for most of them.
Yep. That's really good. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are some really good points. Are you using ChatGPT or any of the AIs to make content?
I am I'm still trying to understand how to utilize it. But one of the main things that I like to do is I like it to help me give prompts. So I just start saying, I kind of tell it my whole life story, and I go, okay, I'm 24. I've been in real estate for this many years. I've been full time for this. I've done this many deals. And like, I, again, go through your full life story and then say, and I want to start teaching people about what I know. And this is what I know. So help me think of prompts, or help me, if somebody wants to post every day for 30 days and they don't want to do lives, maybe they just want to batch record it, then you can also do that. You can say, again, this is my life story. This is kind of what I want to talk about. Write me a 30-day plan, breaking down, this specific thing into 30 different videos so that I can post it, and it'll generate that for you.
Now, is that the free version, or did you subscribe to the ChatGPT 4?
Both. I was doing that when it was free, and then as I've been understanding how to use it a little better, like kind of giving the whole life story, that's where the 4.0 is a little better, and it just it's more human-like with the words if I ever need help making a post. But the free version is actually very, very useful.
Yeah, and one of our marketing partners, I think there's a bunch of companies that have customized where I think there's something I think called copy.ai that I'm pretty sure plugs into either ChatGPT or one of the competitors, but you can generate and train it, but then you can also highlight a paragraph and just say reword, and it'll reword it on the fly. So pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah, it's insane. I fear the AI, but it's okay. I'm just really nice to it, and I always say please and thank you.
Yeah. Have you used it to make graphics at all?
No, you can do that?
Yeah, I've screwed around with it a little bit. I said, make me a meme that says this or something like that. Yeah, you could. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Please send me those. That sounds so funny.
Yeah, I'll dig it up. I was actually using Gemini on my phone for that, just because I got a new phone and it just came with the phone. So I'm still an Android person. I've never owned an Apple product. Nothing against Apple, just hasn't happened. So, I was playing around with it. I'll send you one of the prompts.
Cool. That's funny.
So you've never had a real job then? I mean, not that this isn't a real job, but you've never been a corporate slave.
Correct. I have had W-2s, but that's again like Olive Garden or Starbucks. I've never had a 9-to-5 or corporate job.
That's pretty amazing. Are you what do your friends think of you?
I don't know. Okay. So of my friend group from high school that I hang out with every once in a while, like during the holidays, there's me and one other gentleman, and both of us are more in the entrepreneurial space. His father had his own business, so he was kind of already destined to go into that. But I think because of him, my friends don't see me too much as an outcast or weird or anything, so that's nice. What's nice is, or what I find very fun and very funny, is more and more every time I see them, they get a little more interested in what I'm doing, and they go, okay, yeah, I'm looking to buy. I'm looking to buy like this and this and this, or like I want to start buying, or not start, but I want to buy this. And I'm like, okay, well, I come across those. They're like, not yet. Maybe in like 5 years. And I'm like, okay. And then I see them again. They're like, I'm a little more interested. Like, what are you learning? So it's been fun. It's because I'm not in a kind of job like that. I don't understand necessarily how they feel. I'm sure that they are very risk averse because safe corporate cushy job, which is great for them. But I'm trying to rein myself back from just saying like, take the plunge and move everything into a Roth and let me, build up your savings account for you. I'm only doing it in the best interest of you.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I have two of my really close friends are both in the business to some extent. One of them I'll see actually at this conference, but others, yeah, some people are just not cut out for the stress.
Yep.
And after living through 2008 and COVID, and honestly, even right now with the interest rate moves, there's parts of the commercial multifamily side that have some challenges right now, and they're stressed when you're eating what you kill, and you never know when your next check is coming in. That's a level of stress that some people are just not cut out for.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think luckily, so I grew up in a not too orthodox home where both of my parents were never, I don't think either of them had corporate jobs. I think a couple times my mom maybe had a 9 to 5. But both of my parents, when they were younger and on and off with my dad, they've been homeless. And my dad, I think the most recent time he was homeless was when I was in high school, but he had a car. And so he had heard that I was a little worried for him, and he's like, no, it's fine. I'm fine. Like, come along. So there was one time where he picked me up early in the morning. He kind of showed me his routine. So he's like, I sleep in this canopy, and he has a little canopy, or he had a canopy. He's fine. He has a home now, but he had a canopy, and then he had his mattress topper and everything. And he's like, so I come here, I sleep here. And then afterwards, when whatever, then I go to the park, I have an induction cooker, and he's like, and then I start cooking my food. And I was like, oh, okay. It's not anything crazy. And because I am who I am, and I know that I have a lot of resources, like I know that if I were to not be able to pay rent, people would take me in, thankfully, and I know I would work to make sure that I'm able to not. I want to provide back, but I now know because of that, I can totally handle if I'm homeless or if I have a car or whatever. Like, I know that I'm able to take care of myself no matter the circumstance. So I think I was very fortunate in that sense to have this kind of confidence. And I don't think a lot of people have that sense as well. I mean, I don't know a lot of people who have been homeless, or a lot of people whose family or parents are homeless. So I can't imagine the fear that they may have.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely was kind of just young and naive, and I had a W-2 for about a year and bought my first couple houses, but I quit within a year. But I knew I had my parents to fall back on, and I was young enough that it was like I had really not much to lose. Like I was interviewing a guy named Robert Krager yesterday who made the jump with a family already, and he ended up working for a wholesaler pretty quickly. He bought his first house, and then went to work for a wholesaler, and had a really good run. And then he got crushed in 2008, like a lot of people did, and then rebuilt everything back up again. So it's reminiscing, thinking back now to what it took. How long did it take until you were comfortable? So like from the time you quit Olive Garden until you because I'm sure it was still stressful, even though you knew that you had nothing to fear really. But when did it? How long did it take to get to like a steady state where you felt like you had it figured out?
I would say it took me about a year, because I was once I quit Olive Garden. I mean, I just wanted Olive Garden until I finished paying off the program, not until I was financially ready, I guess. So I quit, but I still had so much to do, and I was kind of in a lull. I didn't really know wholesaling too much and a lot of different things. And so I started going into Airbnb arbitrage, which is essentially subletting and doing Airbnb. And I'm not suggesting it or anything. I don't really want to stay in it, but that's just me. I don't like I don't want to stay in the hospitality industry right now. But I ended up getting 3 in 2022. And it took me about a year to really stabilize them and feel, okay, I understand how to work the 3 that I have now. And so, after that, I was like, okay, I got it. I'm good. And then I started doing the wholesaling, and then I started adding on lending. So it's like, now I'm understanding the different income streams that I can work with.
Yeah, that's great. And you've got a good team around you as well, right? So you have a couple partners on the wholesale. Do you use assistants in the Philippines or offshore as well to automate certain things?
No, not yet. Or no. I really like being able to teach other people what I'm doing. So a lot of the people, pretty much everybody that I work with, is either in Subto or knows somebody in Subto, and so they refer them. They're people that want to be in real estate, and they're here in America. And I appreciate that. I like being able to give people jobs here.
Yeah, and that's even better. You have someone who took the step of joining the program, that has the ambition and the desire, and what better way to help them and to give them some on the job training.
Yeah, and what's fun, or what's I really appreciate about that as well, is a lot of times a lot of people have been in Subto for a while, either a few months or maybe even a year or longer, and they haven't quite been able to understand, what they really like to do, or how to wholesale, or there's just too many things going on for them. So when I bring them on board, it's really easy to set that expectation of like, hey, we're looking for people to stay for at least 3 months, because direct to agent, it's about building that relationship and following up with the agent. And it can take a couple months until they think about you enough, or they have another deal to bring to you. And so if you're just staying on for a month, it's really not worth it for anybody's time. But because they've been in sub 2 for a while and haven't gotten any traction or anybody to give them as much time and education as we have, they're like, oh, 3 months, that's easy, I can totally do it. So the churn is not too high. It's great.
Oh, that's great. That's a really good system. So what's next for you? What are your goals for the rest of the year?
I want to focus on lending. I want to really, I'm inspired by Alexis Morgan. I believe now she's a 20-year-old, and I think she started when she was 18, and she was just amazing at being able to raise capital. And then she started working with a gentleman named Abraham Gray. And so now they lend together. And I love every time I see her, she's always flourishing more and teaching more people about how to lend and how to lend safely. And it's a very fun game to learn. And again, I like the lending game because I really feel like I'm able to bring even more people into this space. And then with whatever I do, I want to show people what I'm doing so that they're always doing it responsibly and safely. And I believe in the whole pay it forward. So I think if I show people how to do it, then when they work with others, they'll show them how to do it. And for me, the easiest way to be able to do all of that and show all of that has been through wholesaling and has been through lending. So those are the two things that I'm really, really focusing on. And so yeah, with the lending, I really want to focus on double closes and helping people flip, especially with flips in Texas.
Yeah, and Texas is just such an amazing market all around. Mm-hmm. I think just the highest population growth in the country. Yeah, Houston and Dallas, and well, obviously Austin, but very bullish on Texas in general. So I think that's a great market to be focused on.
Yes.
So tell everyone how to get a hold of you.
So easiest way to get a hold of me would be Instagram, because I'm of the Generation Z era. So my Instagram username is my name. So it's Jada Thoele. Hopefully my name is up there. I forget if it is or isn't. And kind of anywhere that you see me. So Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. But Instagram is the best place to get a hold of me. That's where I post the most often. That's where I see more of the DMs. And I'll be most likely to reply to you.
Great. And you have your own podcast as well, don't you?
I do. You were on it. Actually, I was telling my mom about you today because I said, oh, hey, I'm going to be going on to Jack's podcast. And I was telling her about when we met. And she's like, oh, I remember you telling me about when you guys met. And then she's like, which one is he that was on your podcast? And I was like, oh, it's this guy. And she's like, I can't. She's like, I think I know who you're talking about, but show me. And then I showed her that it was yours, and she's like, oh my God, I love that guy. So I just want you to know that my mom loves you.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, there's a little less of me now too. I'm down 35 pounds, I think, since I shot that podcast.
Yeah. So she likes a little less of you now. 35 pounds less.
Hopefully it's 60 or 70 sometime soon. We'll see.
I believe.
Yeah.
Get it.
I'm on a good, I'm on a good path at the moment. So I kind of fluctuate up and down. We'll see. I'm going to a convention this weekend. We'll see if I can behave. Or not.
God. That's when it's the worst. And you have to go to these. It's a part of the job. So I'm always like, oh, I don't know what to do. Should I stay on the diet? Should I stay? Yeah,
and you saw, because I think we met at a dinner that we were at a large group, and I've kind of got a reputation as the fun guy, so people seek me out and kind of feel a little bit like Bert Kreischer. Is just kind of except I keep my shirt on. So it's but yeah, we have a great time at the conferences, and it's a tip for anyone who's listening. There's no substitute for going to a live event to meet others that are looking to, some people that maybe are a few years ahead of you, some other people who are just starting, some vendors, some potential mentors. Live events are amazing and worth the time, the travel, and the effort to get to.
Very much worth it. Yeah. More and more I've been understanding that in order to do what I want and help the people I want to be learning more. And I can't learn from people that are at my level. I want to be learning from people that are like you and have been in the business for a while and know a lot of things and do a lot of different things. And it's difficult to do that when you're only attending Zoom calls or only watching podcasts. And like, it definitely helps, but actually going to the places in person that you know they're physically going to be in, the in-person connection is so much better.
Well said. Well, let's leave it there for now, but we'll do this again sometime. Jada, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'd like to remind everyone to please like and subscribe on iTunes and Spotify, YouTube, and connect with us on all major social media. And thank you. We'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you.
That's all for this episode of Alternative Investor Mastermind. Now that you know the many alternative opportunities out there all up for the taking, you can finally become ultra connected and ultra wealthy. Get more valuable advice from the experts by subscribing to the show at alternativeinvestormastermind.com. Become a winner in the world of passive investing today in alternative investment strategies. Thank you for joining us. Until next time.